happy to go ahead and get started, and then we'll see who else shows up.
Okay, good enough. Good afternoon. I'm Lynn Widener, and I would like to welcome you on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Mercer County. As many of you know, we are a grassroots, nonpartisan organization. We study issues that affect not only our county, but also the state and nation. We then try to inform the public regarding what we have learned. One issue that has been brought to light in recent years is human trafficking. We've seen reports about trafficking at the border with Mexico and the Jeffrey Epstein trafficking case, but are we here in Mercer County immune to it? With us today is Lizette Olson, who we hope can give us the answer. At the conclusion of her presentation, she will take your questions. Lizette is Executive Director of A.W.A.R.E, a 24/7 dual victim services agency serving Mercer County, Pennsylvania. In her role and career of social activism spanning over 40 years, she is active on a host of boards working on economic development, community change, medical services, and advocacy on behalf of the needs of victims locally, statewide, and nationally. She has worked on anti-human trafficking work for over a decade, building awareness and capacity among professional working people with youth in the region, sharing the work of meeting the needs of victims with all sectors. In 2019, the inaugural Human Trafficking Summit was hosted with 100 attendees and presenters representing faith, medical, legal, police, and federal, state, and local perspectives. Along with social justice work, Ms. Olson has also served as a lecturer at NEO-UCOM, Continuing Medical Education, Northeast Ohio University College of Medicine, Youngstown State University, Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health in Baltimore, and University of Maryland Graduate School of Social Work. Ms. Olson earned her undergraduate and master's degrees from Pennsylvania State University. So with no further ado, Lizette, you have the floor.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, thank you to the other attendees who've taken to join us this lovely afternoon. I'm going to be talking about a difficult subject. This is human trafficking. For most people in our community, the conversation around trafficking has either been focused on international activity or on some of the FBI stings that have occurred in major cities. But generally speaking, most people don't think it actually impacts in Mercer County. So up on the screen there, I have some basic information about what human trafficking is. We actually believe it to be modern day slavery. Its primary focus is force, fraud, or coercion to obtain either labor or commercial sex act from victims. Millions of people around the globe are involved in trafficking, either labor situations or commercial sex practices, and it includes men, women, and children. Oftentimes, many of the victims are lured with false promises of great paying jobs in interesting sectors. And I wish I could say that it was novel and new, but it is not. If you remember, the Salvation Army's foundation of its ministry was based on anti-human trafficking activity when women from Ireland, Scotland, and England were coming to the United States to work as domestics or to work in restaurants, and instead were being impressed into prostitution. So it has been with us for a very long time. It's just that we are starting as a nation to have a more focused look at what it is and how we can respond federally, statewide, and locally to free people from this really heinous activity. Nobody grows up thinking, oh, I'd like to be a sex worker against my will and make no money and be forced to travel from one end of the country to the other, or, work out of my basement between 2 and 5 in the afternoon. It is a very lucrative activity for the trafficker because reusing people's bodies, basically they're renting them out 15, 20 times a day, as opposed to with drug trafficking, it is a product that is consumed, and once it is leaves the hands of the person selling the product, they have to get more product. So this has actually been a shift we've seen with some of the drug cartels south of the border that they're moving into and have been moving into, both labor trafficking as well as sex trafficking, because it's less, there's less focus on it at the border. How is trafficking different from smuggling? Trafficking is exploitive based. It can impact anybody, any age, any race, gender, nationality, and quite honestly, people can be trafficked right out of their bedrooms. And we've actually had that experience here in Mercer County through the internet, which quite honestly, parents, grandparents, just generally adults are not aware of the predatory nature of the internet. You'll see in some of the other slides that I have here, literally 50% of all global commerce on the internet is trafficking in porn. It's not Amazon. And people tend to think of it as being fairly innocuous because it's ubiquitous. We shop at Walmart, we shop at Giant Eagle, we shop on Amazon, we shop on eBay. And generally people don't recognize that people with a criminal intent will take advantage of the vulnerable online. And oftentimes this results, particularly for younger kids and teens, being trafficked out of their homes. As I shared, it's about means, action, and purpose, and the victim is in the center. How do you recruit? How do you obtain? What is, how is the victim restrained? And it's force, fraud, and coercion. Some victims are restrained because the trafficker threatens their family or their siblings. They may say, oh, we're going to get you into movies, but they don't tell them it's going to be porn. They think they're, how many times did we see back in the day before we couldn't go anywhere with the pandemic, when we would have folks come through and say, have modeling activities, and it's like, oh, we're going to have a modeling contest. You too can be a model. Here's my card. Let me organize headshots for you. Let me take you to LA, Chicago, Houston, Atlanta, New York to get you seen. Oftentimes people's innocence is corrupted by ill intent. Who are the victims? Again, we have not great information in the United States because so much of this is hidden. We do know, particularly for children, whether they're runaways or if kids are involved in social services or foster care, particularly, is a really red flag. That's why I highlighted it in red. These are the invisible and the marginalized children of our community. And how many times have we seen with Amber Alerts that have come across, local news, that kids have run away? And, up until very recently, runaway teens or runaway, like middle school students wasn't taken as seriously because there was all kinds of rationale police and, criminal justice would bring to bear. It's like, oh, it's an upset they're having within the family and taking off, when the reality is, we also know of stories where, children have been shanghaied, literally off the streets sometimes. And by our lack of attention or choosing to embrace our own myths about this doesn't happen here because we're in we're in Mercer County, which is the equivalent of Mayberry, we are putting the vulnerable at risk in our home communities by ignoring it. The reliability of reporting victim. We use the phrase human trafficking because we're trying to encompass a focus of the Fed, the state, and locally in the professional community. When people are exploited this way, they don't walk around going, I am a human trafficking victim. They don't walk up to a police officer and say, please help me, I'm a human trafficking victim, because most victims don't know who they can trust and who they can't, because exploitation and those that oppress people in this line of work in the underbelly of our community are not seen as safe brokers. And part of that is from the information provided to them by the trafficker, and part of that is from actual experience. Looking at who are the victims, they're predominantly female, though as you can see, 20% are male, and this is primarily for labor trafficking. Male victims under 18 are almost exclusively used within sex practices, sex trafficking. And as you can see on the other thing, 50% of all victims are minors, girls, and boys. Again, children are considered very malleable and reliable to be quiet and quiescent, because we socialize children to be quiet. We do not like, we like them to be seen and not heard. And the trafficker, they're dependent on the trafficker for food, for a roof over their head, for their clothing, for any kind of positive affirmation. So once they are in the clutches of somebody who is using them for their own commercial purposes, it's really unusual for a victim to actually reach out for help on their own. They need assistance of other adults and other systems to proactively assist them and transition from being trafficked to being a healthy person. It takes a lot of time to overcome that, because all of their preconceived notions, particularly for children, about who is safe and who is not, have been totally corrupted. In our experience here in Mercer County, oftentimes it's family members who are trafficking children. So if your mom, dad, grandma, grandpa are selling you for sex to other people, neighbors or other people in your community between the ages, between the times of 3:30 and 6, it's very difficult for children then to look out at, oh, I'm going to disclose to a teacher or my youth pastor or whatever about what's going on, because their perception is this is either normal or, I have nobody to go to because my adult family members are telling me nobody's going to believe you because you live in Mercer County and this doesn't happen in Mercer County. What are some of the clues or cues we need to be sensitive to? Victims living at the workplace or with an employer. That's usually a pretty big red flag. We had a situation a few years back, or probably about a decade now, where we had a Chinese massage parlor out on 18, and a 66-year-old woman was arrested for prostitution. She was from China. She didn't speak English. She didn't even know what state she was in, let alone the city. She was never allowed to leave the facility. And she was adjudicated through the criminal justice system for prostitution. Once convicted, then she was deported to China. But the man who held the business, nothing happened to him. People housed, when you have victims housed with multiple people, sometimes or oftentimes not related by blood, very chaotic family lifestyle. And I'm not necessarily just talking about drugs and alcohol. I'm just talking about, really breakdown of the family. You have non-blood relations who are coming in and out of the family, or children are being shunted to other people to live with, working long hours with little or no pay. Many of you are aware of the situation down in Atlanta, where there was all kinds of activity going on with the shooting down there that was presented as anti-Asian and hate crime. The reality is that leadership within the city of Atlanta did not want that area where this happened to be identified as a prostitution area. local community members referred to it as a red light district. The people that worked there, it was a classic human trafficking activity. And as awful as the murders of the people were, there was actually an interview with 2 children of one of the deceased workers, a little boy who was 17. He and his brother, 2 years older, were talking on a Sunday interview, you know, grieving about how much they missed their mom and what a good worker she was and how hard she worked. And I can do math. Mom worked at these places for 7 years, and 3 weeks out of 4, she was required to live at the place. And only 1 week out of the month was she allowed to go to the apartment she rented for her children. So if you minus, 17-year-old minus 7, that means you had a 10 and a 12-year-old basically raising themselves for 3 weeks out of 4. And that is not normal. And her work experience was pretty classic. And with all of the attention around, oh, it's not really human trafficking, it's, hate crime activity, I said to anybody who would listen to me, nobody's talking about the survivors who are still trapped working in those 3 facilities, in that neighborhood. Where's the liberation occurring there? And Atlanta is a hotbed of human trafficking because the FBI routinely busts human trafficking activities down there on an annual basis. So sometimes even with national stories, the messaging changes to suit the power needs for a variety of reasons. Oftentimes with children, you're going to have school attendance issues. There's going to be a lot of truancy, a lot of falling behind. Also, the presentation of children, they're going to act beyond their years. They may dress more sexualized. We know in our community, children who have a history of sexual abuse or rape history are more likely to be re-victimized. Throwaway kids in Mercer County, according to the IU4, we have 1,000 throwaway teens a year here in our county. We also have kids who are in foster care, and I'm not saying all foster care families are bad, but we do know that having a foster care history where some people are really not interested in the best interests of the children, it can lead to them falling out of the foster care system and into being trafficked. And obviously children who have all this kind of upset going in their lives and this lack of any kind of stability or valuing them other than body parts is going to lead to low self-esteem. So they're going to be less likely to have a conversation about their needs or what's happening to them. Now I'm going to have you take a look at some pictures. This is from Cook County, Illinois, also known as Chicago. This is first-time arrests of young women for prostitution charges. Okay, this is the second picture. Anybody want to give me any idea of how long you think this took to see that change from the first group of pictures to the next? Anybody want to give some thoughts on time? Okay. This literally went 6 months from the first picture to the second. So you can see the physical impact of people who are trapped in this particular life. And oftentimes drug abuse and drug control is utilized by traffickers to keep women involved in this kind of life. What is PA Act 105? This is Pennsylvania's response to human trafficking. It has 3 foci: prosecution of traffickers, prevention of trafficking, and protection for victims and survivors of trafficking. The Pennsylvania law is actually stronger than the federal law, which I'm very excited about. A lot of the work that Becky and I do and A.W.A.R.E does is directly related in supporting Pennsylvania Act 105 in our region. One of the cool things I like about it, particularly for the more vulnerable, which is children, is oftentimes you've seen, like in movies and Law and Order, where John will say, oh, well, you know, she said she was 18 or she said she was 21. In Pennsylvania, mistaking a sex worker for being an adult when they're actually not is not a defense by the defendant. And it's a unique feature in the Pennsylvania law. And a man, it's primarily men involved in this kind of activity with children, men who consume sex from children, once they are arrested and it's identified that the person performing the acts for him is under the age of 18, that is an automatic Megan law offense. So you can't say, oh, she said. It doesn't matter what she said. It's about how old she really is, because quite honestly, children can't give consent to that kind of activity anyway. And when they're caught between one adult who's telling them if they don't go out and generate X amount of money or have X amount of contacts a day, they're going to be risking a beating or worse going back. So the whole focus of the legislation is not to put the onus on the trafficking victim. It's to put the onus on the adults involved in this activity. Mercer County experience. We've been working here at A.W.A.R.E with trafficking since at least 2009. Our primary focus has been working with the faith community, who quite honestly has been light years ahead on this topic compared to the nonprofit sector. I know our work has been involved with training professionals working with minors on the signs and how to intervene and how to assist children who are working, either with a mental health provider or CYS or some other youth-centered program. How do you protect children from trafficking? And we've been doing that regionally. Our focus has been with Lawrence and Mercer here in Pennsylvania, and with Mahoning and Trumbull County over the border in Ohio. Mercer County is the nexus for trafficking here in the eastern US. I personally found that out by going to a conference in Philadelphia. And, you all realize that most people, do not know where Mercer County is. So when people say, where are you from? I say Mercer County, Pennsylvania, last exit I-80 before you hit the Ohio border, just so I can give people like an orientation. And two of the presenters on the panel were very excited because of our unique features of having I-80 and I-79. We're a border community with the Youngstown area with other highways and byways. So there is a lot of activity going through our area as well. We have identified homegrown sex trafficking. It is part of a rural experience, not just here in Mercer County, but we've identified it. And we've worked now with Bob Coachums, Miles Carson, and now Pete Acker as DAs. So, and for all three of them who are seasoned, older professionals in law, this kind of activity has been really shocking for them, because oftentimes we are not finding it with people who are really poor or people with mental health issues or people who are drug addicts. We're finding it with people who just say, well, the kid needs to start, bringing some money into the house. They need to earn their way. And those of us who think we're speaking English with other people, we do have people in our community who do not have the same understanding of the phrase family or of the titles of mom and dad and son and daughter, where there are no self-protective measures in place to protect children in these family units. They are really being exploited right out of their houses, sometimes right out of the internet as well, because people are just finding a way to commoditize their children. Traditional prostitution has changed to either online delivery or a motel delivery. Unlike big urban areas where they have like a neighborhood where this kind of activity goes on, we do not have that. So currently we don't have a countywide coordinated criminal response, though I will say that a number of the professional police departments have been more lionized around this. And they do share information with brother officers and sister officers about what to look for. And I will also point out that, as you've heard, a running theme through my presentation is around online activity. Municipalities that fund our police departments, they really need to fund the hardware and the staffing, because a lot of crimes, not just trafficking, have an online feature, whether it's stealing people's money from their accounts, or dealing with some kind of activity with bullying behavior through social media. The police departments in our community throughout Mercer County, they need this additional financial support to put the hardware in place, the training in place, that they can do the online investigations required with what I call the in-person crime that has occurred. They're not divorced. They are complementary to one another, and they both need to be part of the investigation. A.W.A.R.E has a forensics program that we have with the local jail. And quite honestly, it's through our jail program over a dozen years. We routinely have identified what are called human trafficking victims. And many of these people have profound prior history with child sexual assault within the family, and they also have active domestic violence issues as adults. These people tend to be what would be referred as frequent flyers. They're going in either for prostitution issues or low-level crime with drug muling for their partner, or what I call ATM theft, that kind of, or credit card theft. They're not particularly violent activities, but they routinely are going in and out of the jail. And I routinely share with people that, we had a Vic who actually asked our advocate, can you please talk to the judge about keeping me in jail, because I feel safer here than I do in the real world, which gives you a real sad look at what the quality of her life was as an adult. Elder sex trafficking. Now I'm going to watch the entire world just recoil on this. This is newish. The Department of Justice has commissioned a study here in Pennsylvania back in 2018 with the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Domestic Violence and the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape to investigate this. This is a new version of trafficking. Pennsylvania is an older state. Mercer County is the oldest state per capita in the Commonwealth. So this is something that we have concern about and we've had experience with. This is usually perpetrated by family members or caregivers who are serving the senior in the home. It is part of actually a larger coercive practice where family members want access to their Social Security check or their pension, their house, their car, their medication, maybe any kind of tangible that's of value to them. So using them for sex practices and for elder porn, that's just additional benefit. The focus is on shame. And by shaming, whether a male or a female patriarch or matriarch of a family, they are not going to report to the police this is going on. They are not going to assist necessarily with a criminal prosecution because of the shame and the fear of this being known in the general community. And since 2017, 2018, a new form of pornography online has been spawned from this practice called elder porn. So that's a sad feature for Pennsylvania, I think. How to help? Continue to learn the facts, evangelizing on what trafficking is and what it is not. Engage others to learn what to see, how to see. I often encourage people to take a look at the U.S. Post Office training video on YouTube. They actually train their mail carriers how to look for trafficking activity and trafficking victims when they're delivering the mail, because there are certain features that most of us aren't going to notice just in daily life. We do share common cause. We need to share this work with other individuals. And you all are participating from the league. So, I know you're very community focused. So, Becky's going to be doing a call to action. We also work with other sectors, education, medical, obviously police and law enforcement. Becky's going to talk about her work with the U.S. Attorney's Office and her work as facilitator of the Human Trafficking A.W.A.R.E. And what I tell people, because they tend to get really excited about this and want to work with us, but people need to balance on this, because this is really confronting evil in its most banal way. And we need to be protective of our own soul and our own sense of worldview when confronting this, because there is no easy way to address this issue at all. And then I'm going to be handing off to Becky as soon as I finish up here, and assuming, taking any questions from the group. But join the Mercer County Human Trafficking Collaboration. There's a lot of different activities that are up on deck. They have been meeting by Zoom because of the pandemic, so you can just click into a meeting through your computer. And that's a general information about the human trafficking. So does anybody have any questions or comments, or have I totally stunned you all? Okay. All right, moving on, I want to introduce the next presenter. It says my name up there, but this is Becky Bruno, who's going to be presenting. Becky's been with A.W.A.R.E as the Legal Advocacy Coordinator way back in 2011. She has a Crim Justice degree from Edinburgh University. And she currently, her prior work was with the Mercer County IPP program with county government. During her tenure here at A.W.A.R.E, she's expanded the scope of the legal advocacy program as an independent division. We have a state recognized program called the Mobile Legal Advocacy Program that services victims who live rural and remote. She innovated a heel-to-heel companion dog program to provide comfort to victims going through the court system. She continues to have very close working relationship with the president judge and the district attorney A.W.A.R.E to integrate legal advocacy work, to share the work so that everybody addresses the needs of victims from a victim supporting perspective. Currently, along with facilitating the Mercer County A.W.A.R.E, she's actually working on two other county-wide projects. One is developing in concert with our partners in the community a visitation and exchange program, and also working on a civil legal representation program for victims, particularly to aid victims going through domestic relations. Donna, do you have a question? I see Since up there. Or do you want to just ask it?
I was just wondering if there's an increase in this since the pandemic.
Well, according to the Commonwealth, there has been an increase in child sex trafficking because children have been unmoored from traditional school delivery. And I can say from our experience here at A.W.A.R.E, we've seen increased violence pretty profoundly. For domestic violence, we had 3 domestic violence homicides last summer, and the level of violence perpetrated on victims has increased, so that instead of just going to ED, we're seeing people go into, inpatient or to trauma centers because of being shot or stabbed. I admit personally, I am concerned about what's going to happen when kids go back properly to normal school, like, next academic year, because children are dealing with not only with the trafficking issue, but they're dealing with a lot. They have been dealing with for a year and a quarter, a lot of insecurities around food, housing, employment, things that children should not be dealing with. And they're going to absorb that anxiety and stress and trauma, and they're going to bring it forward into the school district. And kids are not going to be able to learn well when they're dealing with so many adult related issues. So yes, it's an issue. Becky, how do I do your screen share? Down at the bottom, it says share screen. There you
Yes.
go.
Is it ready?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. Thank you for having me today. As Lizette already introduced me, my name is Rebecca Bruno. I'm the Legal Advocacy Coordinator for A.W.A.R.E and also the facilitator for the Mercer County Human Trafficking Collaborative.
Just click down.
I am, and it's not working. Oh, there we go. There we go. So, like A.W.A.R.E, Lizette already shared, A.W.A.R.E hosted the first Human Trafficking Summit in Mercer County in September of 2019. The summit provided education and awareness around human trafficking in Mercer counties from all different sectors. And then at the end, I did a call to action which initiated the community collaborative. So who represents the collaborative? Victim Services, we have a large representation from the faith community, human services, medical. We have UPMC Farrell, we have Sharon Regional, Stewart, and Grove City Medical Center. We have different educators and the criminal justice system. I will say for the criminal justice system, we are not a task force. We cannot do it. We have no investigative means or anything like that. We are just, our purpose is to raise community awareness and provide education. However, we do have Officer Staples. He is the community engagement officer for the city of Hermitage. He is working on trying to build a task force with the district attorney's office. And that's a work in progress, I will say that. But he has joined the collaborative and it's been working well with him. We also, that is not on this slide, we have the banking community as well. We have representations from First National Bank on there as well. And that's just recent. So the purpose of the Mercer County Human Trafficking Collaborative is to provide education to raise awareness in Mercer County about human trafficking by building a comprehensive network of service providers and individuals focused on the victim support, empowerment, and the healing of mind, body, and spirit. Again, we cannot provide any investigation and we cannot make any arrests, unfortunately. So what have we accomplished? Like I said, we had a few in-person meetings in 2019 and early 2020, but then due to the pandemic, like everybody else, we had to go to virtual means. So that is what we've been doing. In January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. In 2020, we did send out a faith mailing, which provided resources for federal, local, and state. And then in 2021 was the Human Trafficking newsletter was created and distributed about what we have accomplished as the collaborative. In October of 2020, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Pittsburgh and the Salvation Army of the Western Pennsylvania updated the collaborative members of the resources available to victims of the human trafficking and how human trafficking cases were being prosecuted. We did have a large response that attended that meeting. The Salvation Army has a grant, it's called the Light Project, Leading Individuals Gracefully Out of Human Trafficking. Here at A.W.A.R.E, we did utilize some of the Salvation Army's resources. with one of the human trafficking victims that we housed for a period of time. When the victim actually presented at the ER, and the ER initiated the SART response. It's a sexual assault response team. And that called one of our emergency response advocates out, and that got the process started of bringing her into one of our emergency housing sites. We surrounded her with all the services that she needed, both legally, and then the White Project helped us out with some medical services that she also needed. In January, this past January, we hosted a virtual training for the financial services industry here in Mercer County. We had such a large response from our local banks. And that is when we did get some of FMB to join the collaborative. And it was the Homeland Security Investigations out of Pittsburgh that who presented on this training. And then I have been, since we started, I've been out doing quite a few community speaking engagements just to recruit more individuals for our collaborative. I feel, when a victim presents himself in Mercer County, it's the collaborative's duty to provide that victim with all the services and support they need to move on to a healthy and happy lifestyle, both physically and emotionally. So what do we have up on deck? We're going to continue to educate and raise awareness through speaking engagements. I am currently working with one of my interns here at the Legal Advocacy Program on a social media, because I feel the younger generation is a lot more educated around social media than what I am. If you go to A.W.A.R.E's website, mercercounty.org, you will see our professional training link. Currently, I have 6 courses for local law enforcement to participate in any kind of online training that they may need. So what I'm going to be working on, as well as the collaborative, is some online education courses for the community access. We're looking to have several different courses: human trafficking in the faith community, human trafficking in teens, human trafficking with elders, human trafficking in adults, human trafficking 101. And then we are looking forward to having another human trafficking summit in 2022. We do have a subcommittee on the collaborative right now that are working on that. I was fortunate enough to be invited to join the Operation 10, the U.S. Attorneys Coalition. We've only had one meeting on that so far. We're going to be meeting again in June. So I'm anxiously awaiting bringing in all the information that I will be getting from that Operation 10 coalition to bring back to our Mercer County coalition. And we are doing some fundraising. We need to be able to get some materials made locally. We need to get these materials out to schools. We need to get these materials out to the motels, hotels, hospitals. So right now we have a subcommittee of the collaborative who's working on possibly a 5K late July or early August, just to raise some fundraising materials. We truly need to get those made.
I would also like to state from what Becky's been doing, we have had a fabulous working relationship with the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Pittsburgh region.
Yes.
Since 2017, when Scott Brady was appointed by President Trump, he was very focused on human trafficking generally, but also what rural trafficking looks like, as well as rural domestic violence. And the 10 activity that Becky just participated on was another iteration of that for the U.S. Attorney's Office, continuing to work with the local counties to make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction. And kudos to Becky for continuing that working relationship on behalf of Mercer County.
Yes, I'm very excited about that. You know that, Lizette. Like Lizette said, our trafficking is much different than what you would see in the big cities. We have family-based trafficking. We've had victims come through the legal advocacy program who are being trafficked by their family members, either for drugs or for rent or whatever it may be. So our trafficking here in Mercer County looks much different than it would look like in a bigger city. So what I would like to end with is we are looking for more recruitment for community members to join the collaborative. So if any of you would like to sit down and chat with me, I would love to meet with you and talk more about this. This is my contact information. The Facebook page is a work in progress. Once that is up and running, I will be sending that out to the public so we can get more activity on that.
But through that particular page, which is for the collab itself, you can direct message on Facebook and Becky will respond to you.
Yes. And does anybody have any questions for me?
Okay, Lynn, looks like we're done.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Lizette and Becky both. Start my video. I got a note there. Okay, now I'm back up. I'd like to thank both of you for this very informative presentation. I, for one, have learned a lot. We would also like to thank Carissa Centeny and the Community Library of the Shenango Valley for assisting us in our efforts to inform the public. We hope to have more informative presentations, hopefully in person before too long in the coming year. And in the meantime, have a wonderful summer and watch for us in the fall. And if there's anything we can do other than get you together with us the way we have, please let us know.
I thank Carissa too for getting the taping of this up on the library's Facebook and YouTube pages. So other people, people participating now can review it if they want to, but other people who couldn't join us today, they can hook back up on it and again, still follow up with Becky or myself down the road.
If you
Yes,
want,
thank you so much.
I can actually email both of you a copy of it in case once you get your Facebook page, you want to put it up.
Yes, that would
fab.
be great.
So I can do that as well.
Thank you.
Probably later this afternoon, because once we get off of Zoom, it's got to like process it, but I'll get
No
that to you this
worries.
afternoon. All right. Thank you all for coming, and I'm going to sign off.
Enjoy the
Okay.
sunshine.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.